Hi, I'm Mike Stephen and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about electric bikes or e-bikes. Nothing's shaken up the bike industry quite like e-bikes since maybe the mountain bike. Because back in the day, mountain bikes came on the scene and all the roadies figured these things aren't going to take off, they're not going to fly. They're for little kids to play in the dirt. And you look at the mountain bike scene now, it's a very busy, active scene. It's bigger than the road scene in North America. Now we've got these e-bikes coming in, and what they are is they're electric assist bikes. So they have a motor, they have a battery, and they're able to make you ride longer, ride faster, and get up the trails that you want to get up or get out on the road where you want to get out. There's all sorts of people that are using e-bikes for all sorts of different reasons. Anyone from a person that says, you know what, I love to get out biking, but I don't need to sweat and get all worked up. I just want to get out and get some fresh air and go for a ride. A person like that can use an e-bike to help them cancel out the hills. You can get people with heart issues or lung issues or all sorts of different muscular or skeletal issues. These kind of people, e-bike is now a way that they can get out biking again. You've got people that have friends that are super fast bikers, but they're not quite as fast. Well, they can get out with their friends and the motor can kind of make up for that extra little gap of difference. One thing to mention with e-bikes is you still will get a workout. You're just not going to go into that red zone or into that really uber cardiac zone where you're breathing really hard and you're dying, unless you choose to. If you choose to do that, you can, because the last type of people that probably will use e-bikes is the people that are avid cyclists and just want to go faster and further. They want to do more hills, they want to do more berms, more jumps, more climbs, and those people are going to be pushing themselves quite hard still. They're going to come back from a bike ride absolutely covered in sweat, but they're just going to have gone further on their tank of gas. I call it the making you 19 all over again. An e-bike has the ability to make you feel like you did when you were 19 riding a bike. So we're going to go over a few different styles of e-bikes because there's different types of e-bikes depending on what you want to do. So right in front of me here you can see this is designed as a commuter. So you're going to have fenders on it, you're going to have lights on it, you're going to have those features that will really help you in an urban or city setting. So something like this is great for commuting to work, or if you want to load it up with baskets and you want to shop, use it as an extra vehicle in essence. So I'll go over a few of the parts of the bike as well. The battery sits right in the tube on these integrated systems. And why I say integrated systems is because you've got some e-bikes that are fully integrated and others that you can add a motor and battery onto a bike. We'll go over that later. But first we're going to talk about the integrated systems. So the battery sits right in the down tube here. The motor sits right in the crank area there. So really those are the two major components of the bike that make the bike an e-bike, is the battery and the motor hooked into the crank. On this style of bike, you do have a heads-up display to explain exactly what's going on, because there is different modes that you can put it in. You can put it in anywhere from an eco mode all the way to a sport plus mode, which is going to be a more aggressive mode, feeding more power from the battery into the motor and helping you further. A lot of them will have a controller on the handlebar as well, so that you can turn the lights on, turn the lights off, that you can adjust your modes quickly and easily. So this style, like I said, is designed for maybe commuting, urban commuting, maybe getting one vehicle out of the house and being a little bit more green. Next style of bike I'm going to go over, it's a fully integrated system as well, is this guy right in front of me. Things that make this bike a little bit different from the urban or the commuting bike are going to be the wider tire with a little bit more grip on it and the front suspension. Still very versatile to commute on, but gives you a little bit more ability to play out in the trails. Now I'm going to get this bike out of the way so that we can see the full-on mountain bike style. So this guy right here, or maybe I should call it this gal, seeing as this is a lady's bike. This one right here is designed for mountain trails. So it's got a full-on mountain tire with a wider and a bigger size again. Another step up in tire size to cushion and give you better traction out in the trails. You've got a suspension fork that has longer travel. So again, to absorb and more keep the tire in ground control or keep the tire on the trail. Somebody that would look at a bike like this would be somebody that says, you know what, I absolutely love mountain biking, but man, my tank of gas runs out a little bit quick for maybe the friends I ride with, or I just want to plain old go further. Something like this will definitely extend your trail time or your trail kilometers. I'm going to go over something a little bit about the range of electric bikes. People often ask, well, how far? What's the range? It's very similar to the gas tank in your car. It depends on how you drive, how much your car is loaded down, whether you're in hilly terrain or non-hilly terrain, so it does vary. A safe guesstimate on these guys is about 100 kilometers worth of range, as long as you're pedaling and doing some of the work. It's going to back down if you're in more hilly terrain. It's going to increase a little bit if you're in flatter terrain and working harder. Also, depending on the modes that you're in, whether you're in eco mode or whether you're in the Sport Plus mode. But I can put it this way. I've owned an electric bike for now 3 years, and I have never run out of battery power on the bicycle. The one thing about it that people also forget is that it's still a bicycle. If you run out of power, you're just riding a slightly heavier bike. You can still get home. It's just going to be a little bit more work and maybe take you a little bit more time. So don't be afraid of the battery range on them. The range is really, really impressive, and that's what's made the electric bikes so exciting here and now, is because battery technology has caught up to the motors and all that to give you the ride that you want for the time that you want. I'm going to put this guy aside real quick, and next we're going to talk about full suspension. So let's take it one step further into the mountains, and now you've got the person that's definitely the avid cyclist and wants to go even faster through the mountain trails. So this is an e-bike that has full suspension, meaning the back suspension on the bike is also moving, so again, giving you ground control. A lot of people think that suspension is all about hitting jumps. It's actually about staying on the ground. That's why they put it in your car, is to keep you glued to the ground. So with rear suspension and front suspension, you've got a ton of ground control. Your tires are gripping into the ground and giving you a ton of control. This bike can be jumped. There's no two ways about it. This bike is very comfortable leaving the ground as long as you are. A bike like this can kind of handle any trail that's out there for the most part, and you're going to just ride further and do more turns, do more berms, do more jumps. You're just going to get to go further. Like I say, you're going to feel like you're 19 again. You're going to go out there and you're going to feel strong up those hills. So that's the mountain bike. The last thing I'm going to go over is, a lot of people ask, is there a system that I can put onto my bike? Yes, there is systems that you can put onto your bike or integrate an existing bike and turn it into an e-bike. I'm just going to grab this guy here, and this is an example of one of those. So you can see it's far less integrated. The battery pack mounts onto the water bottle mounts here. The motor mounts into the rear wheel on this one. So instead of being mounted into the crank mechanism, it's mounted to the rear wheel. Still has your heads-up display and your throttle and adjustments up here. What it does is it basically turns your bike into an electric bike. The honest truth of it is the integrated systems are a little bit nicer, just because they're a little bit more balanced bike, and you're going to get a little bit smoother ride out of those bikes. But if you've already got a good solid existing bike and just want to turn it into an e-bike, there are options for you to do that as well. I hope that I've cleared up a few of the mysteries of e-bikes and hopefully given you some information that you can use. If you have any further questions, just go into your local bike shop and ask them. I'm sure they'll be happy to assist you in any of the questions that you have. This has been Gear Up, and I'm Mike Stephen. I'm Mike Steven and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about all the points of contact between you and your bicycle. Most people when they talk about cycling, they either rave about it and absolutely love everything about it, or they talk about the discomforts that they have in cycling. There's lots of points of contact between you and your bike. Primarily hands, butt, and feet. There's also some points of your body that get stretched further than what you're used to. You're used to standing up like this. In a cycling position, you're going to bend at the waist, you're going to pike at the waist, you're going to be bringing your arms out. So that comes into your hamstring flexibility, your lower back flexibility, your upper neck. Those are all places that start to bug people when they're biking. I'm not saying that I can completely alleviate all the pain, but we can drastically reduce it by doing certain things, buying accessories or adjusting your bike or adjusting what you're wearing. We're going to go through a few things today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is bike saddles. This guy right here is designed to measure your sit bone spacing. It's actually your sit bones that get really sore when you're cycling. Sometimes it can be a little bit of soft tissue too, but it's your sit bones that kind of ache and that bother most people. When you go out for your first bike ride, they hurt. You jump on the saddle for your second bike ride and you're, oh my goodness, this kills. It's your sit bones that are causing the complaining. So what we do is we measure your sit bone spacing and then we get the appropriate width of saddle. So not everybody needs a super wide saddle. Sometimes you just need the cushioning in the right place. So we're going to talk about that as well. So first off, everybody knows this saddle. It's kind of like a cruiser saddle. It goes on a comfort bike. For the most part, you jump on this thing, and as long as you're not doing long distance riding on it, you're going to be quite comfortable right out of the gate. So a recommendation for people that don't cycle a lot or for long periods of time, if they jump on for a half an hour, 20 minutes, something like that, a saddle like this will be very comfortable. It's designed to be ridden very upright. So if your bike is an upright design, it'll make it even more comfortable. And a saddle like this is going to, right out of the gate, be comfortable. Next up to bat, we've got a saddle that has quite a bit less width. This is a surprisingly comfortable saddle for how much width it has. You're going to see some of the companies here explain the body positioning and the cushioning amount. So how much cushioning is in the saddle and what your body position is, how much you're piked at the waist, whether your hips are rotated further in or further back. So there's all these components that go into choosing the right saddle for yourself. So if you have problems with that or are curious about getting fitted for the correct saddle, pop down to your local bike shop. They'll be able to help you out with something like that. Believe it or not, a saddle like this can be quite comfortable if you're riding long distances in a very aerodynamic position on a bike, so very low. So again, on the picture, they're showing the cyclist down in a nice low position and they're showing the padding level down at it too. The reason why they're showing the padding level down to 2 is in a high-end saddle, you don't want a whole bunch of extra weight on that really nice light bike that you bought. So they're going to put a little bit less padding in that saddle and they're going to make you go a little bit faster. And chances are, the more you ride a bike, it's quite simply like raking leaves in your yard. If you rake leaves in your yard once a year, you're probably going to get blisters. But if your job was raking all the time, you're probably not going to get blisters after a while. You are going to get used to it and it is going to break in. Speaking about breaking in, we talked about raking leaves earlier. Raking leaves and that it would cause blisters on your hands. Consider these work gloves for your butt. They basically stop the chafing and stop the break-in period being so aggressive on your sit bones. So working hand in hand with the correct saddle is wearing a pair of correct spandex. You can either wear the spandex all by itself or you can cover it with shorts or whatever if you want. But inside the spandex, what you're going to notice is these big cushiony pads. Right over top of the sit bones is the thickest padding because again, that's the point that we want to get rid of and get rid of the pain. Now into a touchy subject, chamois butter. Chamois butter, not all people know about this, but people that do a lot of riding and longer rides, this is another way to stop chafing. You take this cream and you put it on the inside of the chamois of the short and it really reduces friction so that you have far less friction. Because if you consider it, underneath yourself, you've got friction around this way and friction around this way. So you've got friction almost on every angle of your underneath, the underneath of your chassis. So if you put this in the short, it's going to reduce that friction and make you much more comfortable on the bike. We've kind of finished your sit bones and your butt now. Now let's move on to another place of contact on the bike. Another place of contact on the bike is the pedals. So when you're standing directly with your legs underneath you. That's your natural standing position. When you ride a bicycle, you bring your feet out to roughly shoulder width. And if you're doing long rides like that, you're putting your feet into an A-frame type shape, which is putting a funny load on your hips. What cycling shoes do is they do a couple things. One thing they do is they make that varus angle or the varus wedge angle, they make that angle correct. So what they do is they compensate for your legs moving out. They compensate with the sole of the shoe putting a varus wedge in there so that you'll feel more naturally aligned to your pedals. The other thing that a cycling shoe will do is it's a lot stiffer than a regular shoe. So instead of you cycling over top of the pedal and the shoe really bending over the pedal, what you're going to find is that the shoe fully supports your foot, and instead of getting a hot spot right underneath the pedal, with a cycling shoe it's going to be nice and stiff and stable, distributing weight over the whole bottom of your foot. Very similar to walking. A brief little point that I'll touch on real quickly is putting a good sock in there. We talk about chafing and we talk about sweating and we talk about all this stuff. If you put a good sock in there that's going to wick sweat, it's going to be a lot more comfortable for you. So your feet are going to be drier, therefore more comfortable. And that goes for the rest of your attire, your shirt, your jersey, everything. The last point we're going to go over is your hands. That's the third piece that touches the bike and where people get some discomfort. One thing that can help that right off the bat is if you're not an aggressive cyclist and you've got a fairly aggressive position on the bike, is by raising the handlebars up. Sometimes it's an adjustment that can simply be done to the bike, and sometimes it's an add-on piece that you have to put on the bike. But get yourself more upright. Straighten that lower back for you, straighten the upper part of your neck. A lot of people find a lot of discomfort with those two areas, and it is primarily due to the neck craning up and their lower back being bent over for long periods of time. So again, if you're not an aggressive cyclist and don't care about your time at the end of the ride, get more upright. It's going to make you much more comfortable. The next thing that happens is that running through your, when you're grabbing a hold of your handlebar, running through this area right in here, you've got nerves. One of them being your ulnar nerve. And your ulnar nerve, when it gets pinched, it makes your fingers go numb. So it's a really kind of awkward feeling. There's a few ways to help combat that. First off is taking some of the weight off the handlebars, which we already discussed, getting a little bit more upright. The next thing would be getting a grip that would displace the pressure over a larger pad or a larger area. So that when you grab a hold of this grip, it's displacing that pressure and allowing the ulnar nerve not to get pinched quite as aggressively. The other piece that can help you is cycling gloves that particularly pad in the ulnar nerve area. I don't like to have a ton of padding on my glove in the fingers because I want to be able to hold onto my bars nice and tight and get a good grip. But I do want a lot of padding over top of the ulnar nerve so that when I am in that more aggressive position, my hands aren't going numb on me. You know what? I've touched on a few solves here for making you more comfortable on your bicycle, but there is a lot of solves. If you're not riding your bike because you're uncomfortable, pop down to your local bike shop, talk to them about what's making you uncomfortable. They'll have some solves and fixes to make it better, if not completely alleviate the situation. So hopefully you've got some bits and bobs here that you can use and make your cycling a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable. I'm Mike Stephen, and this has been Gear Up. Hi, I'm Mike Steven, and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about SWAT. We're not talking about breaking down doors and tactical gear. What we're talking about is how to store things on your body or on your bike so that you can get away from having to wear a big Camelback or hydration pack on a bicycle ride. So when you wear something like this, the negatives, let's go over the positives first, because there is a lot of positives to wearing a hydration backpack. The positives are you've got lots of area to be able to store your rain jacket, some food, all sorts of different gear can fit into this thing. Anything that you might need on a bike ride, you can fit in something like this. Let's talk about the negatives. They're kind of hot and sweaty. Even though they work hard on making them breathable, they're still a little bit hot and sweaty on your back. The other thing that happens is, and this is more for the aggressive rider, is as you really shift into a corner, the Camelback, because it's got lots of water in it and your tools and whatever else in it, it's going to shift on your back as you're cornering. So it's going to throw your balance off a little bit. So the last thing that it doesn't allow jersey ripple. And anybody that doesn't know what jersey ripple is when you get going fast enough that your jersey starts rippling and it feels really good. So we're trying to get away from Camelbacks on some of the shorter rides. On the big epic rides, you're still going to wear something like this to have all your gear with you. But on your shorter, maybe more rippier rides, let's try to get away from some of the stuff that you're going to put in your Camelback, but have all the necessities you need stored on your body conveniently or stored on your bike conveniently. And SWAT, it's an acronym. It stands for storage, water, air, and tools. Those are the common things that you're going to need when you're out biking. So we're going to go over a few areas, first off, on the bike where you can find some, or manage to cram some of those tools and some of those necessities. One thing that you can use is you can use this guy right here. This is an Emt Chain Breaker. The chain breaker actually inserts into the top of your head tube. Takes a few minutes to install, probably about 10 minutes to install, but once you've installed it into the head tube of your bike, you now have a chain breaker always on your bike. You have an extra master link. So this is the actual tool, and underneath here there's a place to store a master link. So you can cut out the damaged links and reattach with a master link. So that's a chain tool into your head tube. The next thing I'm going to show on the bike is down low here. There's a tool on the bottom of this water bottle cage. It's very convenient to get out. It's as easy as popping this forward, sliding it out. So a lot of times by the time people say, hey, I need a tool, can somebody grab me a tool to drop my seat? By the time somebody's dug halfway into their Camelback, I already have mine out right off the bottom of the water bottle cage. It's really fast, it's really easy, and it's very secure actually. I was worried about it in the beginning, but it doesn't move from there. On this specific bike, this bike has the ability to have what's called a SWAT box. So man, this thing has a huge storage area right in the down tube of the bike. So if you look at this whole carbon tube here, you've got the ability to store all sorts of stuff in these little bags inside of here. You can store food, you can store tools, pumps, all the things that you might need for your ride. So if you're lucky enough to have that feature on your bike, you're probably not going to need a lot of these other things that I'm going to show you. But if you don't have this feature on your bike, some of the things that you can do to carry some of those extra tools are something like this. This, we call it a tube spool. Tube spool has a tire lever, has a pump, the CO2 cylinder fits right in there. You wrap a tube around this, and you can either throw it in a jersey pocket, or you can throw it, the Velcro actually can make it attached to a tube on the bike as well. So something like this gets you everything you need for a flat change. And guess what? The 80s are back. Fanny packs, they're back. So fanny packs are making a bit of a comeback right now in the mountain bike world, simply because it's right down low on your lumbar. You can snug it up. You don't get a lot of shift out of it. You don't get a lot of the whole part of your back getting hot and sweaty. It's just the very lower part of your back. So fanny packs are making a big comeback right now. These have been around for an awfully long time, and that's an under the seat bag. Under the seat bag isn't anything new, but it is an efficient way to store a few things. You can pop it just underneath your seat, it attaches on the seat post and the seat rails, holds up under there. You can put all sorts of different things under there. A cell phone, 20 bucks, whatever you need to kind of finish your ride off. The last thing that we're going to talk about is some clothing. So there's some clothing that is very much so SWAT orientated. This is a vest that can be worn on its own on an extremely hot day, or you can just wear it underneath your jersey on your average day out there. It's got a little loop right here so that you can actually put hydration right over your shoulder. So you can put a hydration sleeve in there and have water coming right over your shoulder. You also, though, have on the back of the jersey the place to store your hydration sleeve. So it's a big pocket right here to store your hydration sleeve. Hose goes over your shoulder. But you've also got a whole bunch of places to be able to throw all sorts of food, tools, whatever you might need in the back of your jersey. So it's a really, really efficient way to store a lot of stuff. And it keeps it right snug in on your body so you don't get any of that shift in the corners. This is a pair of shorts that has some SWAT integrated into it. It's as simple as a set of spandex shorts, so you can wear these on their own, but you can also wear these with another layer over top. And you just peel up the outer layer, like this short, you just peel it up, and then you'd be able to grab what's inside of your pockets. Cell phones, all sorts of stuff fits really quite smoothly, and it's compressed up against your leg, so it's not getting in the way. So SWAT is just another way for you to get out there and enjoy the trails and not have maybe that big hydration bag on your back. And it just gives you a little bit more freedom, maybe for those shorter rides or those rides when you really want to push those corners and really want your bike to be really, really precise, and you don't want that hydration bag shifting on your back and pulling you off on the corners. You know what? Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any questions about SWAT, come into your local bike retailer. They'll tell you all about SWAT. I'm sure they have a bunch of different things that they can show you and storage solutions for you on your bicycle. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Stephen.